Friends, YouTube people, everybody, thanks for tuning in. If you're tuning in, yesterday we all got double vaxxed. We're double vaxxed now. We got boosted yesterday. Had some time with the kids yesterday, so we made a 20-minute video. I think it was 20 minutes long. I don't think if you've watched it.
They should time it.
We absolutely should. But with that in mind, I thought, what the heck, right? Like, talked with the kids yesterday and got some insight from them. So why not talk with Sara today and get some insight from her? Remember when we would do the open talks at the church? They would ask me to talk, and I would bring these guys and be like, if you're going to talk to me about what it's like to be in recovery and what it was like to find sobriety, why not talk to the kids
and find out from their opinions? I remember what they think.
Yeah, what their perspective was like.
Yeah.
And they really did. They did a really good job yesterday. I think.
All of them? They all got along?
They got along, but more than that, they really kind of wrapped up what it was like growing up in this household for them. And I was really moved by that, man, because they made some wonderful little points that I wasn't expecting. So, what's it like being, married to a guy like me?
Well,
let me say thank you for the apple cider. Like, being sober and learning this thing. Like, I like peppermint tea, bro. Like, you got me a peppermint tea last night. Apple cider. The pomegranate juice. Booches. Kombucha. Like, there's so many things that I love to drink that I wouldn't have ever known about if I didn't get sober. So, thanks for the apple cider. You go.
This is why you go over limit.
Sure. What it was like.
When Stacey and I first got together, I was 18. He was 24.
Yeah.
So young, fun. It was all fun and games until I got pregnant, and then I had to move in with him. And I'm going, whoa. He liked to drink his beer, and he liked to drink his beer with the new neighbor upstairs, and an old friend across the street. Well, not completely across the street, but yeah, it was interesting. So there was a lot of drinking and a lot of partying and friends over. Oh yeah, I'm just going to have this guy over, and he brings a friend, and this one brings, it's just. And when you have a baby, you're trying to keep everybody quiet, keep the baby asleep. So it was a little sticky. There was a lot of arguing. But at the same time, he wasn't really. I just kept saying, you got to go to work, you got to go to work. And he would be like, oh, I'm at work, I've always had a job. And then he would get a job, and then one thing would slip, and then boop, he's got to find a new job. Because he left that job because something made him uncomfortable, but that was it. So it was always never knowing when the money is coming in, always being asked to go to the food bank to get food, and I had to go find rides and stuff like that, and it was scary, and I didn't want to lose my friends that I had before I met him because of his drinking and his demands, and me always having to call people and ask for rides and help and whatever. So I'm grateful to those friends because I still have them today, and they're still with me, and I really appreciate that. But if it wasn't for Dave and Andre pulling you aside after that football, whatever thing we were watching, and calling you out on your shit, I don't know. I don't think you would have got sober.
I really like the point that you made. And when we first talked about sitting down, you had kind of brought up that idea of being afraid, of being scared. And I thought it was a fascinating idea because it's not that you were afraid in the
the
conventional
emotional,
sense, right? Like
physical, like no.
when when a wife says that she's afraid, most people's minds tend to go directly to that dark place where a marriage is violent or a marriage is angry, and that's not what you were getting at. And I was really both appreciative of that because I'm all these years later, I'm kind of gutted to know that I put you in that position. Um, but I'm also grateful that you're comfortable enough to share that with me. We did. We had, football parties and New Year's Eve parties, and I couldn't keep a job to save my life because I was drunk. I was an absolute drunk of a human being. And it wasn't just the booze, I was doing a lot of other things that, at the time were not legal, legal now, but not legal then. Um, and it's embarrassing to talk about, man. I'm glad that I've got you here because it's embarrassing to talk about the fact that I was, pushing you out the door to mooch rides, pushing you out the door to mooch money, pushing you out the door to mooch groceries and, runs to the food bank and stuff like that. And it was always, the party was the priority all the time, man.
It was.
Yeah, and you ended up having to shoulder all that. It's interesting to know that, your fear came from instability. You came from a home where, your dad was a fantastic provider to this day. Fantastic provider, had a very stable factory job, and you never worried about paychecks, money, groceries, school uniforms, nothing like that. That stuff was just second nature for you guys. Whereas you move in with me and all that's gone. It's all gone. And it would have been, I can only imagine, quite terrifying for you, among other things, right? Add to that having babies, and after Joey was born, I spoke about Joey being the guy who kicked over my last beer yesterday.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, you would. But speaking about Joey, it was after that you got sick.
Yeah.
And in that year, it's when I finally found sobriety.
Yeah, I got sick in, Joey was born in 96. I got sick in like August. And then October, they diagnosed me with MS. And then that January, you got sober.
Yeah. It was a crazy year. I mean, I ended up getting sober and finding sobriety. And I mean, I had been hitting meetings off and on before you got sick. Mm-hmm. I had met a couple of friends back in the program and had hit up a few meetings, and then kind of was like, oh, I'm fine. And as Christmas came around, I had that conversation with you about, your dad's going to offer me a beer. It's only Blue Light. It's not even real beer.
I remember.
And by the middle of January, I was worse than I'd ever been.
Yep.
And we were watching NFL playoffs when you had a friend over who you hadn't seen in years.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing to talk about that because even to this day, that's not the person I've ever been. That's the person that alcohol brought out.
I know.
Again, I'm happy and I'm put on the spot to have you in front of this camera because it's going to force me to say things that I don't want to say. But I was staring at her chest and just a pig of a human being, and that's the person that I became when I drank. That's
you were somebody else.
A completely different person than I am any other day of the week. Yeah. And I was making inappropriate comments and just being a pig of a human being in front of you, in front of the boys, little kids, my own children and my friends, and this young lady who had come to visit you for the first time in years. And it was Andre and Dave who pulled me outside and laid into me in a big way.
Yeah.
And I spoke about that in a number of meetings and open talks. It was a definite defining moment for me. But I had also had like 4 moving violations that year that I got sober. Driving for Steve, he actually let me use the van to come visit you.
Yeah. And then I ended up, they had to call an ambulance from his house.
That second time, yeah. Called an ambulance from his house when you lost everything from the chest down.
I couldn't get out of the bathroom. My
Yeah.
head was blocking it and closing it.
Yeah.
Couldn't get the door open.
Yeah. It was a crazy time, man. And then Saul Nosdenchuk. You know, I finally had
All those violations, you had to go and see him
Yeah.
as a judge. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I found Sue Berthium. She kind of guided me toward the grade 12 program, actual diploma program at St. Mike's. Got in front of Saul Nosdenchuk. He dismissed everything, set me free to go. All my fines got waived, like $3,000 worth of fines, man. Something like that.
I was pregnant with Jack
Jack, the sobriety baby.
after, like,
Yeah. Yeah. It was
you
a
were
heck of
just
a year.
getting sober,
It was
and
a heck
then
of a
you
year.
did all of that stuff, and the fines got thrown
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And then I had to have gotten pregnant in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because it was 97 and I had Jack in 98.
Mm-hmm.
So,
One heck of a year, man.
yeah, it was.
And then we landed in St. Thomas when Freightliner came calling. Left Windsor behind, and here we are today. It's been a grind, man. It
Yeah.
hasn't been easy.
But you know what? I think us moving up here and getting away from all the familiarity, I don't know,
Yeah.
of Windsor
Mhm.
and all the negative and the bad things
Mhm.
that happened there for you, putting yourself in a brand new situation helped you
Mhm.
start over.
You know what's really neat? And I need to thank you for that. When you and I were, I wish I had that atlas in front of me. We were highlighting the atlases and
All
stuff.
little green highlights of the different places that we could
Yeah.
yeah.
It was such a fun time. The
I
conversation,
was very pregnant with
very
Jack.
pregnant with that big, huge yellow moo with the big frills down the side.
Very, very pregnant.
I just remember Steve next door with the banana comments. It was so funny.
Well, I had to go
Yeah.
outside,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was stupid. He was out there doing something.
The conversation that we had, that you kind of brought out of me that one time after a meeting, I think it was a salt mine meeting, the idea that we're not running away, we're going to
Yeah.
something new, that shift in
Mhm.
thinking that I'm not running away from anything here, man. We are moving towards something new. And every day since then has been an absolute adventure, you know? And if we're honest, another point that you made earlier on when we were kind of talking about this, we haven't enjoyed the stable factory job. We haven't enjoyed, bills paid on time. But like, we haven't enjoyed that. Even at my best efforts, layoffs have come, job instability has happened, car accidents have happened. There's always been kind of a change in trajectory.
There's been no consistency
at all. But what we've definitely enjoyed has been like each other, the love, the hugs, kisses, the support, the family lessons of just being together. Like, that stuff has never gone away.
No.
This is supposed to be you, not me.
I know, but you seem to say a lot of words.
Try to fill in the space.
I was waiting for space.
Here you go. It's all yours.
All right. So, yeah, the instability was rough. But coming up here to a slower placed community, like, it's just a slower pace. Like, you got horses on the road, you've got this, you've got that. It forces you to slow down and relax. It took me a long time because when we first moved up from Windsor, we landed in St. Thomas. St. Thomas is not slow paced compared to this town.
Definite difference. Yep, definite difference.
But when we moved there from Windsor, it was slow paced. And it was hard. I remember being in the apartment when the kids were babies, like little.
Avon Road. Wow.
And I remember, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go. I get to the doctor's appointment a half an hour early, and they're like, wow, you're really early. And then people are coming in right at the appointment time, and I'm going, who does that?
Remember the grocery elevator?
Yeah, I remember the grocery elevator. We were on the second floor. Just throw the laundry basket down. They throw the garbage or the grocery bags in it, and we would just pull it up with a rope.
Yeah. So our parking spot was right there.
Yeah.
There's our second floor balcony.
Yeah.
So rather than go all the way around and up the stairs, just had the boys fill up the laundry basket and I'd load it up.
Yeah.
We were geniuses.
We were, but I mean, I couldn't get up the stairs with all three of those kids. Jack was still in my arms at the time,
and it gave them something to do, right?
They were crazy.
Gave them a sense of helping out.
Yeah, that's what we'll call it. Until they started asking you to carry up and do it with them in the basket.
Never happened. It never happened.
They asked. That
never
happened.
They did ask.
But it was great. Like coming up here, there was nothing. There was no stress, no worries.
Yeah.
It was great. Everything improved. I started working at the school.
Yeah.
And then it is what it is. So I forgot what I was talking about.
We were just kind of doing what it's like now, right? Compared to what it's like then.
What it's like now is so way, way better now than it was then. Mm-hmm. There's some great memories from back then, but I wouldn't want to go back then. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to go back there.
Yeah.
Because it changes anyway. We know everything changes. Mm-hmm. No, we can't go back to the same thing that we're remembering. Mm-hmm. So I try to remember why we came up here in the first place. Mm-hmm. It was a new adventure. It was a new thing.
Adventure, man.
It's like the kids when they were little in the back of the car. Wow, I like St. Thomas. It looks a lot like Windsor. It has streets and roads.
It has streets and roads. Actual quote. St. Thomas is just like Windsor.
I'll never, ever forget that.
It has streets and roads. Fascinating thing, though, right? Like, they did their trick-or-treating in Windsor. Into the car they went. Conked out. Woke up the next morning in St. Thomas. So that moment for them is kind of etched in their own history, mm-hmm. right? Fall asleep in Windsor with this idea of what Windsor was like.
Yeah.
Wake up in St. Thomas.
Yeah, because
just the way we couldn't have predicted that.
No,
we couldn't have wrote that.
You had Jack in the car seat.
Yeah.
In St. Thomas when you were unloading stuff from moving, and then I brought Joey and Jack trick or treating, mm-hmm. and then put them in the car and came up.
Yeah,
I drove sleeping in the back. I had the cat too.
I drove the U-Haul truck with Bill, and you came up with Gord.
No, I came up with Bill's son.
Bill's son, that's
Bill
right.
Bill Jr., because we had Bill's car.
Yeah, that's right too. Yeah. Yeah, we did all the unpacking, unloading that night. Yeah. It was crazy. Well, hey, man, I don't know if this is coherent or if it makes any sense or if it's cohesive, but,
Don't be afraid. Talk to somebody. Al-Anon's there. Your neighbor's there. Your friends are there. Your pastor, your priest, your whoever. Somebody's there to listen. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's just a little bit of a struggle where you kind of have to shake it through. But if you believe in somebody, stick with it. That's why I stuck with him. I believed in him.
Oh, man, thank you. I love that you touch on that because that really is, of all the defining moments, that's the one where the man who married us, who's no longer a priest in the Catholic faith,
baptized all our kids,
but an incredibly important part of our story.
Yes.
Incredibly important part of our story. was still a priest at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say talk to somebody, reach out, right? You had gone to the meetings, you had been there, and
Yeah.
you had some frustration over me. And you reached out and you called and you picked up the phone and you talked and you asked him for help. And he brought over one of my father's only friends. And I've talked in previous videos about my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the guys used to go to meetings with my dad. I come home from work. He's shoveling somebody's walk just down the road from the place where I'm working. And he said, so I guess I'm coming over to your house tonight? And I went, I don't know. Oh, you better go home and talk to your wife. And I did. And you had invited a couple of people to come over to the house that night. The issue is, you called them to help you. And that's not what happened.
That is exactly what happened. I just
Well,
didn't believe it at the time. I called because I wanted to talk to them.
Yes.
But they knew what
the
my
problem was.
issue is,
Yeah.
what the problem was. Because if they didn't know, then
Well,
why would you bring somebody who's in AA to do a 12-step call?
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
You can't do it by yourself if you don't know
and
them.
I mean, we were active in the church. We were the leaders of a group. We were doing a lot of really cool stuff in our community. And so it's hard to believe that you have a problem when that's going on. But there it was. And they came over to the house and they did not help you.
They helped you.
But they definitely had a pretty big impact on me that night. And it was specifically,
John,
who said to me, like, in my face, like, you know where the meetings are at. You know where your dad's friends hang out. You know, I mean, just because he's been gone all these years doesn't mean his friends aren't there, right? Same people. I'm still going to these same places. And it had gotten to the point where nobody was willing to pick me up. Nobody was willing to give me rides. Nobody was willing to hold my hand anymore. It was going to be me or not. And he asked me, like, what's your problem? Why can't you get there? Like, you know where they're at. There's 4 of them right within walking distance of your house right now. Like, what's your problem? And I said, I guess I'm too lazy to walk, John. And I had you write those words inside of that book because my handwriting is disgusting. So I wanted to be able to read it. And so you did. You wrote it on a little paper and you
put it right inside the book.
A little glue stick there and you put it inside the book.
It's still there.
There it was. What's the matter, Stacy? Are you too lazy to walk? And that stayed with me until probably my 2nd year of sobriety, when I finally kind of retired that book tattered and torn.
Do you still have it?
Probably. It's got to be up in the boxes somewhere in my little library. Yeah. Yeah, that's a wonderful way to end this, man. You know, reach out, talk.
Bend
she did,
somebody's
and it
ear.
changed our lives.
It changes everything. Even if you find a group and you're not happy there, find another one. I did.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Anything else?
I looked over there to find out you too.
Oh, you're in a good place today.
Oh.
So, I think that's it, man. I think I'm going to hit the stop button.
I don't
See how long
think so,
run.
because, I mean, I can talk all day about little things, but you know, it makes it's the same point over and over and over again.
Yeah, man.
It's just.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks for doing this.
Yep.
I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope everybody out there appreciates it. I don't know how long we went, but we're definitely going to see, man.
Can we time with what I say and what you say? See who said the most?
We certainly could. And I think the answer would be obvious, but, you know, it's pulling threads again, baby. It's always pulling threads, man.
I like pulling threads.
I love you, man.
I love you too.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you tuning in, man. Take care. Bye.